Okay, so this is grade 12 pre-calc. This is 5.1/5.2. So we're going to start with exponential functions. So example number 1, sketch the graph of f of x equals 2 to the x. So what we're doing here is, if you notice, the x value is the exponent now. So let's take and do a table of values and we'll plug it in. So table of values, x will pick like 0, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. So we plug those in. And you'll notice, like, right, 2 to the 0 is 1, 2 to the 1 is 2, 2 to the 2 is 4, 2 to the 3 is 8. Now, these ones are interesting because you got to remember it's a negative exponent. So 2 to the -1 is 1 over 2 to the 1, so that's just a half. So when we graph this, you can see that it actually is an exponential growth. It starts over here, goes along the x-axis, and then comes up. Now, some interesting points. 0, 1, really, really common point. So there is the first part of an exponential graph. And the difference is, for instance, if this was f of x equals 3x or 4x or 5x, it would just go up faster. But the shape is still the same. Okay. So y equals 0 down here, that's our horizontal asymptote. So now the domain, right, -infinity to +infinity, or x is an element of R. Range is 0, but doesn't include it because it doesn't touch it, all the way up to +infinity. Or the other way to write it is y is greater than 0. So what would this graph look like if it was 1/2 to the x? Well, we can compare it here. So if we do half to the x and set up a table of values, we go through the table of values, you can see that it's completely flipped around over the y-axis. So it's a reflection of y equals 2 to the x in the y-axis. Well, okay, we can show you here. The math is 1/2 x, right? 1/2, another way to write that is 2 to the -1 to the x, and that equals 2 to the -x. So that flips the graph of y equals 2x over the y-axis. So knowing that could save you a bit of time. So now, what graph would represent y equals 2x reflected over the x-axis? Well, if you look here, where's the negative? It's out the front of the 2. So if it's above with the x, it flips it over the y-axis. If it's in front of it here, it flips it over the x-axis. Okay, go to the next page. Now, what these next pages are just some standard transformations in exponential functions. So here is the graph, or sorry, here's the basic standard equation. Y equals a, bracket c, the exponent is b, x minus h plus k. And these letters do the same things pretty much as what we've done so far in this whole chapter before this and the chapter before that when we talk about graphing. So A is a vertical stretch, right? So if it's A, it's a vertical stretch. And if it's negative, it flips it over the x-axis. That's pretty easy. What about B? B is a horizontal stretch, but it's 1 over B, right? So that's our standard backwards one that we know of. And then if it's negative, where does it flip it? Yeah, it flips it over the y-axis. Next page, we talk about, H. If it's H, it's a horizontal translation. So this shifts it left and right. Right? You can see that here. And then K shifts it up or down. You got to remember, you have to do transformations and reflections before you do translations. So you got to do your A's and B's before your H's and K's. Okay. Now, if you flip to the last page, you'll see that here's a great example of what happens. So in this one here, we have f of x equals 5x. So that's a standard exponential graph. It goes up pretty fast because that's 5x. Now, let's talk about the transformations here. So the 2 in front stretches the graph vertically. So this 2 right here stretches the graph vertically. The second 2 slides the graph 2 spaces to the right, because what number do you plug in there to make it 0? Well, 2, so it's going to switch it to the right. And then -3 takes the whole graph and shifts it down 3 spaces. Now, the easy way to do that is, okay, here, we set up our x and y. So here's some points, right? 0, 1, 1, 5, 2, 25. And then we do all the stuff relative to it. So what happens to x? We said x shifts it 2 to the right. So it's going to be x plus 2. Y, we're going to times it by 2 and then move it 3 down. So it's 2y minus 3. So then you just take your points, right? 0 right here. Plug it in. 0 plus 2 is 2. Take 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Minus 3 is -1. And just work through your points. And that'll give you a couple points on the graph when you're doing this, and then you can graph it. Okay? So that is 5.1/5.2.